104.5, the team, your home for New York sports. We've got a million fantasy football leagues just like everybody else. So we're reaching out to one of our own, straight from Gilbert, and contributor writer for RotoWire, Lineup Lab, and Sports Illustrated Fantasy, Mike Barner with us. Mike, let's just start right from the rip. Like, who are the players you absolutely love, and if you get a chance that you can't pass up?
Sure. Well, thanks you guys for having me on. I like to. Everybody knows who the top players are. If you've got the number one overall pick, I wouldn't overthink it. I'd go Le'Veon Bell. I like him over Todd Gurley simply because he's got a larger role in the passing game for the Steelers. He had 106 targets and 85 receptions last year. I also think Todd Gurley is going to have a hard time matching his 19 total touchdowns. If you're looking at my top five overall, I would do Bell, Gurley, David Johnson, Ezekiel Elliott, and Antonio Brown in that order.
How about the number one quarterback overall? Rodgers, Brady, Breeze, where are you looking there?
So I definitely think Rodgers is the number one overall. My philosophy, though, is to wait on quarterback. Unless you're in a two-quarterback league or you're in a league where you have the ability to use two quarterbacks in 1 week. There's just so much depth at the position. There's not enough depth at running back. I would definitely wait on quarterback. But if you want to take one of the best ones, the best one in my eyes is definitely Rodgers.
Mike, when we got Mike Barner with us right now. Of course, you can read some of his stuff at RotoWire, Lineup Lab, Sports Illustrated Fantasy. When you said the top running backs, I didn't hear Saquon Barkley. That's a guy who's getting a lot of love. Is it too early on that love?
No, definitely not. I think he's going to have a monster season. The Giants definitely want to run the ball. They finally have an improved offensive line. He's great at catching passes out of the backfield. I definitely think you're going to have to spend a first-round pick to get him in your fantasy draft. I think he's worth it. And he could finish inside the top five at the position.
His teammate now, Odell Beckham Jr., coming off of an injury. It seems like the drafts Levack and I have seen that Odell Beckham Jr.'s stock is falling, whether it be because of the injury, the uncertainty. Where do you see Odell Beckham Jr. going when it comes to draft day?
So I actually like him as the second overall wide receiver behind Antonio Brown. The top tier is usually Beckham, Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, and Julio Jones. I think Beckham has a higher touchdown upside than Julio Jones. I don't think his health is going to be a problem for Beckham. I don't think he's going to miss any regular season games due to his contract situation. I wouldn't overthink it. He's my second best wide receiver.
Well, that leads to this question. We'll be taking some comments and questions on our Facebook page all week long during our Fantasy Football Focus, facebook.com/1045 the team. Marty asked this question. Marty wants to know, do you believe in the Madden curse? And if so, does that make Juju Smith-Schuster a more viable option if Antonio Brown gets hurt?
No, that stuff, you can't look at those Madden curses. I think Juju Schuster-Smith is going to have a good season, whether or not Brown is healthy or not. The Steelers like to throw the ball a lot. He clearly has a good rapport with Roethlisberger. I wouldn't hesitate taking him whatsoever.
We got Mike Barner with us right now, talking a little fantasy football, getting everybody ready for their drafts. I think, obviously, the most important question is which kicker to take. No, is there like, you know, all kidding aside, is there a specialty position player that you're reaching on sooner than a lot of other people? I mean, you know, maybe not kicker or a defense, tight end, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of undervalued players. I mean, one that stands out to me the most, and first I'll start off by saying I don't think there's any such thing as a sleeper player anymore. With the amount of coverage there is in the fantasy industry, the key is you want to get the most value with your pick. So one of the more undervalued players would be Marquise Goodwin of the 49ers. He had 962 receiving yards last year with mostly horrid quarterback play until Jimmy Garoppolo took over. One of my favorite stats for Goodwin is he had a 41.1% catch rate in the games that Garoppolo didn't play, but he had a 67.3% catch rate in the games that Garoppolo did play. I think he's got a great shot at 1,000 receiving yards. He could finish with 5 to 7 touchdowns. He's currently the 30th wide receiver being selected in ESPN leagues, which would be a steal if you could get him there.
You touched on quarterbacks. Some people, your advice would be to wait on the quarterbacks. What's the biggest mistake, besides quarterbacks maybe reaching, that people are making in their fantasy football drafts that you would tell them avoid doing this?
Well, I've seen where the Jaguars defense is being selected somewhere in the 60s on ESPN average drafts. Please don't take a defense that high. It's fluky. A lot of the Jaguars' value last year came from touchdowns. That's kind of a fluky defensive stat. So wait on quarterbacks. Don't take a defense or a kicker early in drafts. Use your last couple picks on those. And also, I think tight end is pretty deep. There's a lot of good guys. A lot of the trendy picks in the industry are Trey Burton of the Bears, George Kittle of the 49ers. I like them. I also like Jack Doyle for the Colts. I think Andrew Luck is going to be a big win for his value. They don't have good wide receivers outside of T.Y. Hilton. Doyle is currently the 10th tight end being selected, but he's definitely got a chance to finish inside the top 5 at his position.
Mike Barner with us. You can follow him on Twitter at Roto Mike Barner. He contributes to RotoWire, Lineup Lab, and Sports Illustrated Fantasy. So all this, you always see these manifestos and this, that, and the other thing. Do you have an overall strategy?
I like to take the best available players. With that being said, I always like to wait on quarterback. So, it gets to the point where if everybody decides to wait on quarterback and Aaron Rodgers is still there in the 6th round, well, then that's a different story. Because, again, you want to make sure that you get the most value out of each one of your picks. So don't go in there married to a specific player or to a specific strategy. See how the draft plays out. If you end up loading up at one position as opposed to others, there's always going to be injuries during the year, and you can always make trades with other people in your league.
Daily fantasy, for those that might play 1 week, I'm sure RotoWire and others may focus on that. The different strategy between daily fantasy and league-long fantasy.
Daily fantasy, it's always just about the 1 week matchup. So you're definitely going to want to take into trends like how does a team fare against opposing wide receivers, how many rushing yards does a team give up on average. With season long, you're looking for players that are going to be consistent production for the long haul. With daily fantasy, there might be weeks where, yes, Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in season long, but he might be the 5th, 6th, or 7th best quarterback in daily fantasy, depending on the matchups.
Mike Barner with us, and Mike, I got you, so I'm going to ask you a question for me personally.
I'm ready.
I am a regular season monster, especially in the Death Wish Coffee Fantasy Football League. I cannot be beaten. I lose like one game all season, and then I lose the first round I play in the playoffs. Is that just bad luck? Am I drafting poorly? Am I a bad manager? What am I doing wrong?
No, a lot of that comes into play is bad luck. I hear a lot of people say that. The good thing is you should be proud of yourself for building a team that got you there. The problem is sometimes either through injury, attrition, or you just happen to have a bad matchup against certain teams when the playoffs come around. But stick to your strategy. The key is to get there. Once you're there, anything can happen.
You heard it here. Mike says I'm the best player in Death Wish Coffee Fantasy Football League. Mike, man, we appreciate you. We're going to keep hitting you up during the season. Mike Barner, again, follow him on Twitter at Roto Mike Barner. You can read some of his stuff. He contributes to RotoWire, Lineup Lab, and Sports Illustrated Fantasy. And we appreciate your time, man.
Thanks, guys. It's been great having me, and I look forward to answering any questions that you or listeners might have throughout the season.